Hello, everybody. Welcome to your midweek podcast catch up because, like I explained prior, we're going to be catching up. And so there's going to be a lot of posts throughout the next couple of weeks, starting Sunday, trying to stay the regular schedule. And when I say regular schedule, like we're going to catch up. So Sunday we'll still have an episode, but then I'm gonna try to record the other episodes and launch them throughout the week, so that way we can get caught up to the date. So we're looking at we are March 5th, and so we should be already on our St. Patrick's Day theme. But like I said, I'll catch up and we'll still discuss all those things that are coming up. We are now done with clowns. And so we are going to be talking today, opening up the whole Valentine's theme or love horror theme or anything that kind of deals with that type of relationship. And I feel like I chose a pretty good one to start off with because Gerald's Game not only is a pretty psychological horror film, but it really discusses a lot of deepness into what is assault, what is as sexual assault, what is rape, things like that. Like just the way that you kind of look into her psyche and realize what should be accepted, what shouldn't be accepted. I thought it was pretty insane to actually look at. There was good parts about this movie that could be a really good discussion, and then just the way the ending really happened, like it was one of them that kind of failed for me. So if you remember last episode when we talked about it, chapter 2, how the way they kind of ended up killing him was really a disappointment. Like it was really anticlimactic. I feel like the ending really in this movie really it kind of followed that. Like it didn't hit the mark of being like, dang, that's the ending we wanted, right? But before we continue, let us hit that theme song. Okay, to start off, I didn't know I was kind of hitting a Stephen King uh it's like genre or anything like that. This is another one of his like novels of the same title. Um and so a lot of it came through him, and of course we have it, and we have so many other movies that we will be looking at that is Stephen King, that really we got to look at him and be like, is he okay? Because all the content he really created, the horror film, which is great for entertainment and great for reading, and really you're like, holy cow, like it can really grasp your fear. We just got to make sure he's okay, because anybody who can keep creating stuff like that has got to be pretty twisted in the mind. But anyway, we get this pretty crazy like movie where we have this couple going on a romantic getaway per se, but in a very remote location. I am one to say like it's okay for couples to have a getaway or so, but I feel like the scenario that built up for this movie could have been a lot avoided if they would have like said like, hey, I sent the cleaning crew away for just today and tomorrow. They'll be back in 2 days or so, or something like that. But he like sent them away for like the whole weekend or the whole time they're gonna be there, and that's where where being in a whole remote location is kind of like it's kind of sus, right? Kind of suspicious. Why do we have to be like that, right? Like, and it's okay being in a like remote location, but like I feel like being able to check up on being able to check on yourself, or have people check on you to make sure everything's fine. I think those are the kind of things that you have to kind of look at least when you're looking at at the perspective of what could happen, and maybe I'm just thinking it in a way of. I'm trying to be prepared for the worst case scenario, and maybe not a lot of people think about that. But like, what if like as you guys were having a night out, or having that vacation, and an accident happens, and you're like super far away from the hospital? Like how are you going to get there? You're going to have to get life flighted. Will they make it there? Will they make it on time? Will you live? So those are the kind of things that maybe I'm a little bit paranoid about that, but that's just something that came into my mind. But the one thing that was interesting, and one thing that you need to capture when you're watching horror films, or most any movies, is I when there's gonna be some tragedy happening, or something that's gonna happen, you got to pay attention to all the surroundings, including what's on the radio. And as they were driving in, and then they were having like their discussions and stuff like that, on the radio was discussing that there had been a lot of break-ins around the neighborhood, and that kind of helps us lean into what just happened later on in the movie, or what she encounters later on in the movie. And so when you're grasping that, always make sure you pay attention to what's going on. It one will always prepare you to what will occur, and that can actually help you not be too shocked or scared, because as you're listening to these clues, you're going to be realizing that they're discussing certain aspects, certain things like that. And you know what? A good example of this is HBO Max's new show, The Last of Us, which is an adaptation of an amazing video game on the PS4. If you haven't seen it, let's kind of segue into that. But it's a really great show, and they really have adapted it very well. The movie the game is actually really good. It has a lot of the survivalist kind of things of a zombie apocalypse. And what I love about how the show does it is that when you watch the first episode, you gotta pay attention to everything that's happening in the daughter's surroundings, and what's going on, what's on the TV, what's the news saying. When you start discovering what's been going on, you kind of see, okay, something's developing, and you can prepare for something there. For everybody of us who's watched, who've played the game, we already knew what was going to happen. There is no if, and, or buts that we weren't going to know what was not going to happen. Like what wasn't going to happen, right? We knew it was going to happen. But for everybody who hadn't played the game and were just watching this, you just got to pinpoint those things. And so here we're already hearing, like and then you got to look at the clues. Because we're hearing again, there's these break-ins, and then when they get there, he's like, "Hey, by the way, I told the cleaning people not to come for like the next 4 days or however long they're gonna be there, so that way we can we can play hooky," which is okay. Like it's okay. You guys can get romantic, do weird things that you guys want to do in your bedroom. I don't really care about that. But that's where it's like a little bit suspicious. Like, okay, well, one, how crazy is it gonna get? And two, like maybe we shouldn't. Like maybe we should have people come still clean up. Because like if I had someone cleaning my place, I'd be like, yeah, can you please come back like 2 days later? Because I'm not gonna clean, right? I don't know why he thought that they were gonna be cleaning. So anyway, now we get to the point of the role playing, and I've never understood this, and maybe it's just a perspective of me being a man, but the whole bondage thing, like tying someone up in the bed, I think this kind of, I don't know, it brings a negative perspective, at least for me, and maybe other people like it. I like, again, this is just coming my perspective, but I wouldn't want to be tied up, because I wouldn't want to feel like someone's taking advantage of me. And I bet it's vice versa. I don't know how like women want to be tied up to do to role play in any sexual things and be okay with it. And it goes back to the whole like what society's trying to okay with pornography and all that stuff. I feel like it isn't okay. I feel like there's a lot of things that that could cause anybody to just feel kind of scared, and I think that's where it is, right? That's where it is, and that's where she kind of gets into the issue because she's trying to connect with her husband, and he has this other idea that seems really like dominant, which I feel like it's a red flag already, unless you're like I don't know what, and then he ends up taking his Viagra and then dies, right? So now the whole ordeal of this is that now she's stuck, tied up to the bed without any way of escaping because the fool who had the key threw it. I don't even wherever in the room, and then he had a heart attack. So again, it goes back to like maybe always being prepared, like thinking of the worst case scenarios and being like, hey, just in case something does happen, is like maybe we should use plastic handcuffs so that way I can break them and get out or something like that. Like I don't know. I feel like if they had kept that in mind, that it could have been a lot better. And maybe if you're thinking of doing something like that, keep that in mind, right? You don't want to get stuck in this type of scenario. So now she's stuck in her bed and she's handcuffed to both sides. And all of a sudden, the part that kind of like freaked me out is that he stood up, but I realized that it wasn't really him. It was now her subconscious starting to get into her. And this is where we start seeing just exactly what went through her mind, or what was, what trauma she had gone through in her life, and how she ended up with a guy who could only get excited if he was choking her and things like that. Which again, I think is very weird. And I don't mean to be so controversial of this, but it's just strange. That whole theory of choking someone, I wouldn't want that. I wouldn't want someone choking me while I'm trying like we're trying to have intercourse. Like I don't know. Anyway, so she gets in. She's stuck here, and so now it's playing the mind game. Right now, she's got to listen to all the negative thoughts that are coming, that are being portrayed by the ghost of him. Right, and now she has to relive through all the things that she has tried to hide or tried to run away from in her childhood. All right, and so now we're just seeing her trying to see like, okay, I gotta survive, I gotta do this, and I alone, seeing her that she was stuck, was feeling so anxious. Like the movie didn't have a lot of scary parts. It had a lot of triggering parts. So if anybody had gone through anything like any sexual assault, or anything that had to deal with like sexual harassment or anything like that, like I know this could probably have been very triggering. And so if you watch this and you read it, I apologize. It was one of those conversations that had to be had, right? We just got to get through it. We got to get through it together. So just know you're not alone. Reach out to someone, get some help, if anything. But we get to see how her life was, how her life was managed as a child, or as youth, by certain behaviors by men, right? Which led her then to have, Gerald, who then also had these types of behaviors that ended up getting her to be always submissive, or always trying to hide something that's bad, so that way no one get in trouble. And that's where I was like, holy cow. And this is coming from a father now of two girls, where we tell them all the time, if anybody, even us, say that, like, hey, don't tell anybody this is a secret, like, that's a big no-no. You tell someone, right? Like, that no one should be holding any secrets, especially when it comes to um, anybody doing something that they shouldn't do with your body, right? And so we get to this point that she has to relive exactly what brought her here, which again was pretty messed up. Uh, Father starting off. Now I didn't really understand how this could what the dad did could be considered a oh my gosh, a form of like abuse. And it wasn't something that I was just being ignorant about. I didn't understand. I know, one, whatever it was being done was just incorrect. It should have never happened at all. Like, that part I know was wrong, but I didn't know how this kind of worked into it, right? And so this is where I think it's kind of crazy that as a youth she had this experience with her father, and that was still sexual abuse. Okay, so that was the one thing that I kind of wasn't ignorant about, but like I said, I didn't really understand, because for me, sexual abuse is supposed to be like actual acts done sexually, right? Like the dad, like, actually, like, having sex with the daughter, or forcefully raped or whatever. But in the scenario, he just kind of, um, rubs one off with the daughter, like, right next to him, or like on the knee, on the lap. And for me, I was kind of like, well, how could this be something sexually assaulting? Like, I'm not saying, like, again, I'm not condoning. I'm not saying like, whoa, like, it was fine for him to do. I'm just saying it's totally wrong. But I just didn't know how that fit in until I kind of like looked into it, and it really means that anything that is done like in a sexual manner, around, near, or toward the person, is what could be the abuse, right? And so the dad obviously went way beyond what he should have done, and now I fully understand, once I kind of understood exactly the concept of it, that, yeah, that was totally 100% bad. And one, it was 100% bad in the first place, but I feel like this time it's just terrible. I don't know how someone could do that. So now he's the one who then tells the daughter, like, hey, let's keep this a secret. Don't tell your mom. Don't tell anybody. Which, terrible. Again, like I said, I teach my girls, like, no secrets. Someone does something that they weren't supposed to do, and they tell you, hey, don't tell anybody. That, no, you immediately tell someone. She kept it, right? Because that's how they were back in that time. She was, a 12-year-old. She was scared. She didn't know what to do, right? And so that kind of led to her doing everything, right? Every uh, kind of hiding everything that led to that. And then, well, the one visual part that I liked about this is how it set the mood with the solar eclipse. So we're getting some dark and elusive red lighting, showing us the trauma she went through, and I thought that was really a really great representation, because you could see how that kind of led to everything else, right? Her visualizing everything that had gone through with her father, the talks that they had, the interactions that she had with Gerald. So it really built up everything that was good. And then, we started hearing things around the house. So what woke up Gerald's ghost per se was she left the door open, and one of the, like, I think it was a dog. I felt like it looked like a wolf, but the dog came up and started chewing Gerald's dead body, and she was trying to like shush him away. And that's when he kind of came up and be like, "Well, I told you not to do that," like all the negativity and stuff like that that's in her mind. And so then she starts hearing all this other stuff, and she doesn't know who's there. She yells out, "Is anybody there?" All this stuff like that. Again, I'm feeling anxious because she can't escape, right? The good part is that other than the negative parts that your psyche can have, that your subconscious can fill you in when you're in a scenario like this, you're also in a really great part to see positivity, and that's what we get with her as well. She's able to find ways to psych herself up and let her know that there's a way out of this, right? She was talking about how thirsty she was, and man, she's not gonna get any water, and what's she gonna do? And then her visual representation of herself comes out and gives her, so she has Gerald, the negative side, kind of like, how you have the angel and the devil on your shoulders, right? So she has Gerald on one side, who's the negative, the negative Nancy of all things. And then you have her persona, who's the positive side. And I loved how she was like, no, you did great. You've done this, you've done that. And she's listened, so if you look at it, our psyche always has both sides, right? And I loved the fact that the psyche was just like, look, he may, have gotten excited, like he may have not needed the blue pill or, the Viagra when he did this section. But guess what was good about that? Was he needed water. It would dehydrate them. And guess what's above you? And so she sees the water. So I thought that was pretty cool to see that, like, in the midst of that, you're just fighting your mental struggle. You get both positive and negative. And so I loved how she was able to get that and be able to sort out her water and stuff like that, which was really pretty, which was cool. So then we get the opportunity of her to finally escape. And if I'm running through a lot of these things, is because most of that discussion was really what she had gone through. Everything that she had with her dad, everything that came with Gerald, and then then the person they called the man made of moonlight, person who was just walking through the house. Again, like I said, if you hadn't paid attention, it was, there was a lot of break-ins around the house, or not that house particularly, but other houses. So she just had to battle all that while sitting there. Luckily, she didn't, you can survive a couple of days without food, but with water, no. So she at least had water, and she was rationing it off as best as she could. And then it was time for her escape, which I thought was pretty crazy. But before we continue talking about her escape, let's go ahead and take a little break, and then we will be right back. And we're back. All right. So her escape, I thought, was really, really cringy, and not cringy as like cheesy or, oh, don't say that. But, oh gosh, it even hurt me seeing her rip her skin off, or not breaking her thumb or dislocating her thumb, and then still having to rip out the skin to take out the the handcuff. I thought that was, oh my gosh, I that even hurt me as I watched it. It was crazy. And then while she was escaping, then she sees that, the man made of Moonlight, the guy that just appeared out of nowhere, very tall guy. Fun fact though, that tall guy, if you didn't know it, plays Lurch in the Addams Family in the 1990 version, the original versions, right? And so, if you didn't know that, that's who he is. Uh, so she sees him, and she finally gives him her ring, like her wedding ring. Like, I'm done. Like, which was a really great step. Like, mentally, she was there for, I believe, 2 days, 3 days, I think it was. And I love that out of her psyche, she was finally able to accept, like, I should have never told my, I should have never accepted my dad's, whole, let's keep this a secret thing. I should have never done this. I should have never been with Gerald. I should have had my own worth. And so finally she escapes, gives him the ring, gives this mysterious person the ring, and then leaves, right? She's out. All right. And she's, I love it that she writes a letter to her 12-year-old self saying, like, like you're gonna get through this. Everything's gonna be fine. You will be, you will defeat this, and kind of give her the encouragement. And then she kind of gets her life back in order. And then she finds the newsletter of the person she saw. Like, she even had, there was one part that like freaked me out, that she had still dreams that the man made out of moonlight like appeared out of, like, in the corner of a room. And that part, like, was like, holy cow. Then she gets the newspaper and realizes that the man made out of moonlight is actually finally got caught, and because he's the one who was breaking into all these houses. And then so she goes to confront him, and when she walks into the courtroom, we already see that he's in shackles, and there was no reason for him to be in shackles, because he just immediately breaks it and starts saying, "You're not real, you're not real," because that was one of the things that she was saying to him multiple times when she was still stuck in the bed. And he would just say, "You're not real," and then she just kind of like was like, "Thank you," kind of like she has finally moved on, right? And I loved what she said, because she didn't say thank you, sorry. She says, "You're so much smaller than I remember," meaning that she finally beat whatever she had, struggled mentally, and thinking that these monsters, her dad, Gerald, all these things were like a lot bigger than they were supposed to. And then when she finally met it, it was a lot smaller. I liked that part of the story. But the fact that the man made out of the moonlight was an actual person, I thought it was ridiculous. I feel like they should have left it mysteriously out of there, right? Because that would have set off that everything that she had gone through was her psyche, and she was able to beat it. The fact that he was a real just kind of made it really ridiculous to me. I was just like, seriously, like, no way, why? Like, why would you do that? Like, you could have just let him be like, this guy was just made out of nowhere, right? Like, this, he was an actual ghost. He was the one who was haunting you. He was that big monster, like the boogeyman, right? The boogeyman's not real, but it still haunts you. And I feel like that's what they should have made with this. Like, they should have gone with it. Like, whatever she believed, her monsters that were big weren't big anymore, and she could defeat it. But the fact that she had to say it to an actual live person felt great for her, and to be like, yes, I finally beat my monsters, or whatever. But I feel like it would have had a better like ambiance if it were actually some inanimate object, a ghost per se. And so we ended there. She leaves, and she's good. She's good. And so I enjoyed it. Netflix really brought its A game with this one, and And I feel like if you liked it, it had a really good portrayal of it. It's something that makes you really think of different types of scenarios that you could probably avoid. Again, like I'm saying, like I'm not gonna be the one who's gonna be pinpointing what you should or should not do with your significant other, but I'm just saying, think of the worst case scenarios and be ready for anything. So again, if she would have, been like, "Hey, just in case I need to get out, like, can you not, you know, lock it, and or can you at least, you know, find a way that I can, yeah, I can get out by myself if need be." And and then also just make sure you have people always checking in on you, because, and I don't remember if they had cell service or not, but at least someone could have known where they were at, and if it could have been a couple of days, they could have been like, what's going on? Because imagine she escapes and gives this, the guy her ring. She leaves, and then, then she finally describes to the cops, like, hey, by the way, like, my husband died about like 3 days ago, and I've been stuck in this place for a long time, and we gotta get everything else arranged. I feel like that would have been like a what? No, like, well, who wasn't looking for you for 4 days? Like, where was your family? And so I feel like that's where you just gotta always touch your bases and always make sure that someone knows where you're always at, so that way if things per se happen, um, someone already knows where to locate you. So that was basically it. This one was really short because, again, the conversation that we had to had is that we just got to change society's mentality of what is okay and what is not when it comes to a sexual activity. And two, you can choose whatever you want. You can decide what you want. But I'm just saying we got to get to a point where these type of dehumanizing acts aren't something that we're going to be accepting, and we're going to be wanting to do it. And I say this out of the pureness of my heart, that I just feel like the act alone of whether you call it procreating or fun per se, recreational sex should be done in a safe manner, and that way both parties are comfortable with it. Once it gets kind of weird, or like once you start, I don't know, feeling dominated, I feel like it just takes away that magic that's there, and then that's where you create all these type of scenarios and problems that could be avoided if actually worked on yourself, which I felt like Gerald could have done, or any other people. But again, those are my 2 cents. So if you're like, shut up, no one cares, just know that that's just me. And so I recommend this movie. I thought it was really good. Again, ending kind of PO'd me a little bit because he should have remained an inanimate object, because that would have worked well with what she was going through psychologically. But other than that, it was very entertaining to watch and be able to see how she was able to finally get up and defeat, all her trauma that she had, and be able to come out in a positive route. So, all right, so that was this episode, and so stay tuned for the more other episodes that we're going to be going through. And if you do have any recommendations of a movie that we should watch and we should discuss, you can go ahead and DM me on Instagram, just at Geos_thoughts, or you could also send me an email. You can find it. It's just geosaavedra19 @gmail.com. Make sure you use the subject line podcast ideas, and that way we can I can go ahead and review that and add it to the list. But other than that, I am also looking for a co-host. Anybody who wants to kind of join in with these conversations, go ahead and hit me up. Same thing. You can just put the subject line podcast co-host, and fill it out like if it's an application. Fill out why you feel like it would. You and I would connect great with these type of horror films, and how we would be able to um, make this a lot more entertaining. If it's not, just know it's always going to be me. So, but I hope you guys have a great rest of the week, and see you guys next time.